Welcome to the Horror Room. I'm Travis Bruce, and today I am doing another indie horror spotlight. I have the director of a movie that's streaming on Tubi right now. He knows, and he also has a new movie he's in pre-production right now, doing some funding for, and that's Bad Apples. I have Steve Morris. Steve, how's it going, buddy?
Going pretty good. Thanks for having me.
I'm glad to have you, man. So tell us, everybody. So it's he knows right now. I've had the pleasure of seeing it. It's a great slasher movie, and that was your first. That was a directorial debut, if I'm correct.
Yeah, yeah. First film, writer, director, producer, made here in Indianapolis, Indiana. Shot that back in about, I want to say, started in October of 2020. We wrapped that in August of 2021 with only 22 days of filming. But if people can recall, that was right around COVID popping off. So
Mm-hmm.
it took a while to knock out those 22 days of filming amongst all that craziness we had back in the very beginning of COVID. So
Okay, so tell everybody who hasn't had the pleasure of seeing it. Tell us a little bit about He Knows.
all right. So he knows about is a blah. It's about a masked killer known as Sammy the Elf, who's punishing the naughty of a small Midwestern town. It's a little bit of an inspiration from films like Scream and things like that. So the inspiration for the killer's design was between Twisty the Clown from American Horror Story, matched up with a little bit of an elf on a shelf. So I think we knocked the luck out of the park for the killer for sure.
Awesome. Now, I mean, it's an interesting story because without going too much into it,
Mm.
but Sandy is kind of like Santa Claus's elf son.
Yeah, so that's a fun little backstory we have for him. Uh, so essentially, there was a young kid who witnessed a crime as a kid, and it was Sammy the elf punishing somebody who was naughty. And she kind of grew up and was traumatized by that. So she made up this whole backstory for him, where she was like, he was the Mr. and Mrs. Claus couldn't have a kid of their own. So they had
Mm-hmm.
this of one. And that elf was Sammy the elf, and he would go and help Santa Claus take care of everybody for Christmas. Santa would help everybody who was good, and Sammy would punish those that were naughty. Well, Santa Claus was kind of disturbed by that, so he banishes him from the North Pole. Uh, so Sammy goes and starts doing his own thing at the South Pole. No, so that was kind of like a made up backstory for that character who was just traumatized as a kid and was like trying to make sense of it. You know what I mean? Um,
Mm-hmm.
but at one point in time, that was going to be the whole plot of it. But I was like, oh man, an indie film. I don't know if I can afford to go a full on creature feature like I
Yeah.
wanted. I was like, I'm more terrifying than a creature, a masked killer. Anybody can
Mm-hmm.
do this kind of situation. It could be your friend, your enemy, your lover, you know? So
And
that's a fun story for me to explore.
that's awesome. Now, by this being your first movie and it was you were doing filming during COVID, what are some challenges that you ran into?
Oh, scheduling. I mean, scheduling was insane. We had people, so we shot in Indiana, kind of all over the place in Indiana, depending on the scene and the location. But we had people from California, Nevada, New York, Georgia, all these different locations, and all the restrictions with traveling. Uh, and then once you start putting it off for a few dates for a couple of people aren't available, and it was just kind of pushing that along over the year filming that. So scheduling was probably the biggest challenge for sure, especially because we really didn't have the budget we intended at first. But we still, by the end of it, filming over a year, I still was able to kind of get the budget we needed by all of that was wrapped. So,
That's awesome. Now,
and the
but so were there any things that you learned from making your first movie that you're like, oh, I'm gonna do that a little bit better the second time around?
uh, coming back to scheduling, instead of planning things out in separate blocks like that, where you could have too many things go wrong, like a family member or something, anybody, a neighbor's, if somebody's neighbor stubbed their toe, you know what I mean? Any excuse anybody could have to kind of miss out on set. If you shoot it all at once, there's less likelihood of that happening. So we're just kind of shooting tighter blocks this time around, so it's not so spaced out, so I don't risk rescheduling or losing anybody for sure. And then when it comes to, do you mind me cursing at all on this? I don't know how that
Nah,
goes.
this is it's radar. Go.
All right, right on, right on. So a little fun story of being on set is like we were filming at this Airbnb. It was the second day filming at this Airbnb, and we had a couple of people staying there, not too many. But in the middle of shooting, a couple of actors come to me like, Steve, we don't have toilet paper. Um, so I'm like, oh crap, in the middle of shooting, what do? I don't have any PAs today. We didn't have extra hands for those days. And I was like, wow, shit literally happens. So I was able to DoorDash some toilet paper, but little things like that you don't think about. So I'm like, shit literally happens. Always plan for stuff.
Yeah.
Joke of that saying, I guess. No.
I've heard it from some plenty of first time directors. It's just the little things that you don't expect for, or sometimes the biggest hiccups.
Yeah, for sure. Not having coffee on set, you know what I mean, or a
Mhm.
snack or anything like that. I mean, we did pretty good with snacks and stuff, but I'm not a coffee drinker, so I had like soda, tea, water, stuff like that, and everybody's like, "Where's my coffee, dude? I'll cut you." So, yeah.
So one thing I love about this movie, there's a lot of great practical effects, kills, tons of gore, tons of blood. Now, did you do the effects yourself, or did you source
No,
someone?
I had
Okay.
a super talented guy named Derek Worley. He's an effects artist. He's worked on a lot of different independent projects, and one of the bigger ones he worked on was Zombieland Double Tap.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, so he's one of many people that got to dress up some zombies for that film. But for some of the independent films, of course, he's done He Knows. I want to say he did Wicked Ones. A couple of other I can't really list off the top of my head, but he stays busy in the independent horror community for sure. Super talented dude.
Wow. Yeah. Great. I mean, there's one kill without giving that too much away is guy gets something jammed through his eye, and then the eye is like throbbing. And I was like, wow, that looks amazing.
That's one of my favorite ones too, for sure.
Yeah.
Every time I see it, I'm like, oh, it still hits.
Yeah. I was like, that's a badass effect.
Mm.
I mean, I'm an '80s kid, so I love the practical effects. I mean, I don't mind the CGI, but I feel like a lot of horror movies are going more towards the CGI, and it takes away from the cheesy B horror movie slashers.
Mm-hmm. And that's kind of what He Knows is. It's kind of like a nod to those 80s, 90s slasher films. So, like,
Mm-hmm.
one of the complaints I might get is we don't really like any of the characters, so we don't care if they die. I'm like, well, I kind of felt like that growing up watching 80s and 90s films. I was always
Exactly.
in a way. So, a bunch of people using or abusing or selling drugs or children in this town
Yeah.
are getting punished. You know what I mean? You're not going to like a lot of them. Maybe a couple of them are like, they didn't really deserve to die. All they did was smoke a little pot or something like that. But, in the eyes of Sammy the Elf, or, not to give too much away, the cult of Sammy, it's a naughty. So.
I was definitely expecting a sex scene at some point. I was like, okay, that's a naughty thing. I was waiting for some tits or something to flash by, and
had a lot of actresses that are really known for that too. So people are like, oh, I know it's coming. But yeah, I kind of dialed back on that. I was like, my first film as a director, I don't want to be that guy. It's like, hey, come show your boobs. You know what I mean? They're all comfortable with it in the story, right? They'll do it. But like, first film and stuff, family members, I'm just kind of like, I want to make something my kids can kind of watch, even if I'm kind of
exactly.
like, don't worry about what that bong is. You know what I mean? Guiding my 9-year-old son's eyes from boobs is a little bit harder for my first feature, so I wanted him to be able to at least watch that one.
I've always wondered, as a male director, like horror director, how do you have that conversation? Like, you bring up, so I'm gonna need for you to flash some titties in this movie. Like, how does that conversation even happen? I've always been curious how
I
you
would have
bring it.
probably in the casting breakdown, this role requires nudity, so they know not to apply unless they're comfortable with that.
Okay.
And they have that conversation, maybe look at the resume, maybe they are comfortable. Just see what makes them most comfortable on set. Obviously a lot of them want more female crew to be on set, kind of isolate, just whatever it is to make them comfortable.
Yeah.
But I was about to cross that bridge in my first film. No way.
Yes. So, shooting over to your second film, you're actually in the works of Bad Apples. So
Mhm.
tell us a little bit about Bad Apples.
So Bad Apples is about a young self-absorbed psychopath who begins to unravel and kind of show her true colors once her foster family adopts yet another kid to steal her spotlight. So a lot like the movie The Good Son, but with a little bit of a
Mhm.
gender swap. And instead of following the protagonist, we're sticking with the antagonist and kind of watching her slow descent into madness, essentially. And the character's name is Alice. So just playing off the Alice in
Yeah,
Wonderland, descent into madness, blah blah blah. All tongue tied today. Sorry about
you're fine.
that. But yeah, we have Morgan Pyle. She's from Zac Efron's Ted Bundy film on Netflix. The
Okay.
Extremely Wicked, Shockingly Evil and Vile. It's a long title, but a lot of people may know that as the Ted Bundy Netflix film. She played his daughter in that. She was also in another film called The Wicked Ones, and she was in He Knows as Stephanie. So,
Oh,
kind
okay.
of
Yeah.
that sweet daughter character in He Knows. Everybody was like, I kept kind of expecting it to be a little crazier with that character, and I was like, there's plans for that. But with this one, we kind of wanted to, see what she could do with that, and so far, I think she's really gonna surprise people with what she can do with that character. So we're excited
Also,
to get going.
this movie is in pre-production, and so you're doing some crowdfunding right now.
Yes, we're doing crowdfunding for that right now. We have Lisa Wilcox from A Nightmare on Elm Street Part 4 and 5. She's going to be playing that character's mother. Of course, kind of meta in a sense because her daughter's name is Alice. She played Alice in the
Yes.
Nightmare on Elm Street films. Um, our kind of like pitch for that character was like she could survive the dream demons, but can she survive parenthood? Uh, so we have some fun plans for Lisa Wilcox and Morgan and a couple of other characters that we'll be announcing some really soon for the casting. So we're
Awesome.
pretty excited for that. And I also have Britt Baker. She's a local Fox 59 9 news anchor, but she played Tiffany in He Knows. She's also coming back for this. So she's kind of like her character Sarah is like a ex-cancer survivor, and she was unable to have kids of her own. And her and her husband started adopting kids, and now they got 4 foster children, and one of them is Alice. So it's going to be really fun to kind of see the dynamic with them kind of being parents and child in a sense in this film as well, or step parent or foster parent,
Yeah.
essentially, instead of like the step parent that we had kind of for He Knows. But yeah, sorry, it's all kind of
You're
everywhere.
fine.
I'm all excited about the film. I'm like, what do I give away without giving too much away?
Now, what are some fun? Are you on Indiegogo?
Yeah, we're on Indiegogo right now for sure.
Okay. And what's some cool perks that you're offering?
So we have something right now called the Nightmare Bundle. It comes with either a keychain or a necklace. This is like a little Freddy Krueger replica blade, something like that. It comes with a day on set with Lisa Wilcox while we film her scenes. She's going to give you the first 7 films on Blu-ray, autographed by her, along with a headshot and a poster for the film. And you get to hang out with the cast and crew all day. Eat with us and just kind of enjoy some of the kills we have planned for those days. And then we also have things like act or get killed in a film. I recently added the mask from He Knows onto the campaign, so people can now buy that mask. And not only do they get that mask, but they're getting basically a guaranteed spot as a featured extra in the sequel for He Knows.
Nice,
Yeah.
nice. So there is going to be a sequel for He Knows.
Oh yeah, and I'm a big Wes Craven fan, so I'll go ahead and tell you kind of
Yeah.
like the plot. It's not giving too much away from the first film because of how it works, but so the plot for the sequel to He Knows is the first film was just that, a film, now it's getting a little popular in conventions and things like that. And people that were connected to the film are getting killed in real life by a copycat, Sammy the Elf, at a horror convention. Uh,
That's
so
amazing.
yeah. So we're gonna have a lot of people dressed up as like Sammy the Elf and stuff, and other independent horror characters and stuff out there. Hopefully, I can team up with a few other independent directors and get some characters in there that are theirs. But we're gonna have celebrities, things like that, at the convention that we have going on in the film. So
Nice.
we got some pretty cool things planned. So like you could be a producer for not only Bad Apples, but also He Knows Too, which is going to be called They Know. Through a perk we have called the executive producer perk, which will get you all physical merchandise from the campaign, the executive producer perk for both films. Plus, you get to have a cameo, the mask, and all that fun stuff. So,
It's pretty badass. So guys, definitely check that out. Definitely
yeah,
should check it out.
I'm a big person when it comes to crowdfunding. I like to contribute myself, so I'm always like, what would I want? You know what I mean? So
Yeah.
like, I add a lot of fun ones in there, and then we also do custom bundles as well. So if someone's like, I want a digital copy and like a photo of Lisa Wilcox autographed, we can combine something like that. Just reach out.
The one with the day with the whole entire cast, that sounds amazing. That sounds like a winner right there.
We got like barbecue with the cast and crew where they can basically throw eggs at me, because we've been having something where it's like for $3 or $5 I'll egg myself on a live stream essentially for people, and my son or my daughter or my fiance will basically egg me on the live stream for them and be like, thank you.
Nice.
And it's just like $5, you know what I mean? So it's just like a fun way to kind of get people involved and my kids involved and things like that.
So you seem like a pretty young guy. How did you get into horror? I'm assuming you were a horror fan like me from a young age.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so I'm 34, and yeah, I've pretty much been in a horror for a long time. I remember one of the first films I saw was The Exorcist, and a lot of people in horror was like, oh, that was my first film, and it was probably one of my first films that was just kind of like, nothing's ever topped it in scariness for me. I'm just kind of like, yeah, even today I'll watch The Exorcist, and if I'm home alone, I'm freaking out at sounds. You know what I mean? But what really got me into horror was Scream. When Scream finally came out, it was just like a up from like comedy and all these other genres that I was like, this is for me. It's not too serious, not too funny. It was like right there in the middle. And I started going back and looking at all of Wes Craven's work, Nightmare on Elm Street and all these other great films. And I'm just like, this is the dude. So with
he's my favorite.
The follow up to He Knows, it's kind of Wes Craven's new Nightmare approach. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, just paying more tribute to Wes Craven from The Scream to Wes Craven's new Nightmare. So
that's awesome. Well, this is the fun part of the interview. So I got 3 random horror questions for you. Yeah. You ready?
Mm-hmm.
All right. The first one. If you could personally, I want to say do a reboot, but let's say a reboot of any iconic horror movie, which one would it be?
Friday the 13th.
Why? Why that one?
So I've always wanted to explore Pamela a little bit more, Jason's mom, and kind of the backstory of that. And I have like a whole little plot and everything kind of worked out for it, but I've always wanted to explore the dynamic between them and how they got to being at the camp and working there and all this other stuff. So yeah, I don't know. Jason's always one of those characters where it's like, I've always loved Jason, but like some of the movies as a fan, people are going to hate me, but like some of them I'm kind of like, they're hard to rewatch at times. You know what I mean?
They're horrible.
Yeah. And I wouldn't, another one would be like a Nightmare on Elm Street, but you can't kind of give us a new Freddy Krueger in my sense. So it'd have to be like, what are they calling it? The new Scream for movies, a requel. You know what I mean? It'd have to be like a continuation, kind of passing the torch situation for a Nightmare on Elm Street. Mm-hmm. So I feel like that one would be a little harder to approach, but I have ideas for that too. But Friday the 13th, I'm just kind of like, this can really build on the lore and just kind of give us a lot more craziness, especially with how the rights are divided up right now. If anybody follows the lawsuit and stuff with Friday the 13th.
Sean Cunningham.
Like, yeah, dude, I'm like, I've got ideas that work for either side. Just give me a chance. Yeah, so Friday the 13th for sure, because my son and I were just like huge Jason fans.
Awesome. That's a good one. I didn't hear that. Now, I heard that they're making a Camp Crystal Lake series. Yeah. It's coming on Peacock, I think. I'm just going to follow the backstory of Pamela and Jason.
Mm-hmm. I heard somewhat it's going to be like every season is going to be kind of like tackling a different part of the movies, but that's only if they do past the first season or something like that. So they're promising us a lot with that show. And I'm hoping they can follow through. You know what I mean? Because You know, I'm looking back at shows like Castle Rock and stuff. I'm like, that first season was a little iffish for me. Second season was great, and then they canceled it. You know, so it's kind of like, you know, horror TV shows. It's like, don't promise too much, you guys. Just give us the good.
Yes.
Look at Slasher. Have you watched Slasher? Great TV
Yeah.
show.
Mm-hmm.
Netflix. I think it moved to Shudder or something like that for the later seasons. But like, great. It just comes out of nowhere, and you got a great season almost every time. So
I'm a huge fan right now of the new Creep Show. I love the new Creep Show.
absolutely,
It's amazing.
for sure.
All right. Question number 2. All right. And this might get you some shit, but it is what it is. One horror movie that everybody says is excellent, iconic, that you're like, I'm not into that.
That's really hard. But right now, I probably have to go with Midsummer. I didn't care for Midsummer.
I love Midsummer. Okay.
It started off really strong for me, and then I was like, what the heck am I watching? You know what I mean? It's beautiful film. As far as like technically sound goes, I'm like, this is a great movie. Not really rewatchable for me though. I don't know. That's just a personal opinion. Another one I'd go back further on probably would be the first Halloween movie. I didn't care for it. I'm a 4 and 5 guy, and people are like, "You like 5? Oh my god!" Sorry, guys. I also like H2O and Resurrection.
I do too.
Rhymes.
No, I like H2O, but I don't like Resurrection. I like H2O, but I don't like Resurrection.
So the concept of Resurrection, though, man, like the whole live streaming it and people like saving other people, that was genius, though. I'll give it to people. Not the strongest one in the franchise, though. But that whole.
But I feel like H2O was a perfect ending for Michael Myers, like Halloween. Period. That should have been the end, but I had to bring him back. Now my 2 is Friday the 13th original and the first Terrifier. I don't understand why those movies get so much praise. Those are awful movies.
I thought the same thing about Terrifier, I'll be honest. But then I went back and found out about All Hallows Eve 1 and 2. And there's a short film as well. I think it was like the 9th or 10th Circle or something like that. Yeah. That's all kind of tied into the beginning of that. So it made it make more sense to me. Because just watching Terrifier, you're like, what the heck? What just happened? And if that's all you've seen, you're just kind of like, okay. It was a bloody film. It was fun, but what the heck happened? But other movies made it make sense for me. And then Terrifier 2 came out and still gave me more questions.
Terrifier 2 was great.
Yeah, it's just kind of like, that's one where it's kind of like, it keeps building on itself like Saw. You know what I mean? Each Saw movie, I was kind of like, it gave me a little something better to appreciate one of the previous films more, you know? So I think Terrifier is working out like that. And I hope they can keep it going with Terrifier 3 and kind of top 2. But it's going to be tough, man. The bar's high. They got a huge budget now, so.
Yep. And here's the final question. All right, we're going to do an F, Marry, Kill with iconic horror final girls. We got Laurie Strode from Halloween. We got Nancy from Nightmare on Elm Street. And let's go with Sydney from Scream.
Man, that's a tough one. Well, I told you my feelings on Halloween 1, so I'm sorry, Laurie Strode. I just don't know. I feel like she'd be a very hard person to live with. No.
Yeah.
Actually, watching the newer films, you're like, oh man. Neve Campbell and Sidney Prescott, I'm just like, she seems like she'd be a good wife. Just really sweet and caring. I don't know. I'd probably marry her. And Nancy's got some darkness behind those eyes that just seems fun. So we're gonna go.
What I do like about Sydney too is that she seems good all around, but she also seems. She's a great mother, and like I don't know if we ever get to see her husband or anything in any of the movies, or is she married?
But
Yeah.
I mean, we know it's Mark Kincaid
Yeah.
from Tubi, but yeah, we'll see if they bring her back and how they tie that in. I've got ideas for that as well, just being like a huge Scream nerd, but yeah, we'll
Mm-hmm.
see, man. Because I hear that, Jenna Ortega, the next film, might not have her in it because of her schedule and the strike and everything. It's all gonna throw everything out of whack. So I don't know, man. We're not having radio silence anymore, and I'm gonna be honest, man. Part 5 and 6, I really loved. I'm scared for
Part
stuff.
6 was amazing. I I get people disagree with me about Scream 6. Let's see, I'm trying to think. Yeah, it is still the best horror movie I've seen this year, and I saw it in the theaters opening weekend. And I mean, Evil Dead Rising was kind of up there, but it was close between those two. But Scream 6 is still the best horror movie of 2023, in my opinion.
I really loved Evil Dead Rise, but I made the mistake of rewatching the 2013 one right before it, which was like an almost perfect film in my opinion.
Yeah.
Going back, I'm just like, that is like intense. It's fun. It's everything you want from Evil Dead. The rules make sense to you in the 2013 remake, or I guess we know it's not technically a remake now that they've kind of changed the rules a little bit. If you play the video game, it ties into more about how that could be happening. So I'm kind of excited about that. But yeah, that 2013 was almost perfect film.
It
Spoiler
was.
alert. They killed a dog. Is the only thing that made me take points off of it,
Yeah.
dude. Other than that, man, I'm just like, this is the best, in my opinion, Evil Dead film without Bruce Campbell. I mean,
I
even with Bruce Campbell, people are gonna hate me for that, but it's
I
rewatchable.
I agree. Like Evil Dead Rise, I think I saw the opening weekend, but it was out. I think I released like Wednesday, and people were talking about this is the greatest horror movie ever, and maybe it was because I heard all that, like this is the greatest Evil Dead horror movie I've ever seen, blah blah, that I went in with my expectations so high. And I'm gonna tell you what killed it for me for that movie. The kids were so fucking annoying. I hated the fucking kid characters. I mean, that's awful to say, but those were some annoying ass kids in that movie.
I'll give you that too. And again, it was the rules. The rules didn't make sense. It was like this person's getting messed up, but they're not getting possessed.
Yeah.
Some of obviously it's like, yeah, you're dead. You're going to become evil dead. But it's like, in the other ones, it was like you're exchanging like a large amount of bodily fluid, or you're getting killed, or push it past the brink of pain to where there's nothing else but the demon taking over. There's like
Mm-hmm.
rules of the Necronomicon that I felt like just weren't being followed in that film. That just kind of like threw me off a bit, but it was entertaining enough.
It
And
was.
they did a great job. The kids, again, it was the writing. You kind of hated the kids. The acting, they did a great job per se, but like you hate the characters. You know what I mean? So
Yeah. Yeah. And Evil Dead movies, for the most part, you kind of like the characters. I mean, that's what Evil Dead has always been. Even if you go down to Bruce Campbell, you've always liked the characters and you care about their demise, and this movie was like, kill them all. I don't care. Like, yeah.
well, they probably fell apart on that with Army of Darkness a little bit. I think everybody in that movie was a little bit of a fart.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Oh yeah, Evil Dead 1 and 2. Yeah, there was at least one or two characters that you were like, no. You know what I mean? So, yeah. But I can't complain, man. That's what people say about He Knows. I was like, it's by design. No.
Oh, by the way, did the I mean, well, no, I'll ask you off camera, but he knows. Yep. I don't want to give away anything.
Right.
But all right, so how can everybody find you, Steve?
I'm pretty active on Facebook. It's my main thing. So you can find me Stephen Anthony Morris, Steve Morris, Morris Better Pictures. We have a film group for Bad Apples. It's working title Bad Apples. All that through Facebook. I do have an Instagram, Morris Better Pictures, and a YouTube, but I'm just not that active on there. I like the back and forth interaction I have with Facebook. It just feels, I don't know, like a better connection. Whenever I'm talking to somebody, I'm like, hey, cool. Your kids are doing great. My kids are doing great. Or, hey, you like that movie? I like that movie. It's just, I like it better than Instagram or Twitter or whatever anybody else is using nowadays. I'm just kind of
I'm a
like,
Facebook guy too. Yeah.
I'm an old fart in that way, dude. I'm just like, I'm not learning TikTok for networking. I'm sorry. I'm sure it'll help, but
That's awesome. Well, guys, listen, check out. He Knows is streaming right now, free on Tubi. Check that out, and also swing over to Steve's social media, Indiegogo for Bad Apples. Sounds like another excellent movie coming out soon. Well, Steve, when Bad Apple comes out, I'm gonna have you back on, and we're gonna go ahead and we're gonna talk about that as well.
fantastic. Sounds good.
I appreciate you coming on, my friend. And
Thanks.
everyone, no problem. I'll see you next time. And everybody, thank you for coming to Horror Room. I'm Travis Bruce. I'll see you guys next time. Take care.